Well, hello, Fiona. It's really nice to have you with us today, and thank you for agreeing to take part on Thursday's Thought for Today. Would you like to tell people who you are and how we know each other?
Okay, thank you very much for that kind introduction. So my name is Fiona Gardner and I am the minister at Temple Annie's Land Church in Glasgow. And I met Lynsey when she was a student who came to our church, and she was very inspirational and very unique, and we really loved having her. And so it's great to be able to have kept in touch and to be with you today.
Oh, thank you, Fiona. We had a lot of giggles together, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
We did enjoy working together.
It was lovely.
Fiona, would you be able to tell us a little bit today about your husband, Colin?
Sure. Well, my husband was a veteran who served in the military in Northern Ireland for quite a while. He was in military service for 7 years in total before I met him. He was discharged from the military because of a head injury which resulted in epilepsy. So he went on to do a degree at Glasgow University. He got a job. He did really well in his life. We met up, we got married and had a son, which is all lovely. But over time, Colin's epilepsy became less well controlled, and they tried different things to try and make things better. They had different types of medication, different combinations, a biggest nerve stimulator, lots of things. But unfortunately, his seizures became worse. And gradually, over a long number of years, I discovered that they were actually degenerative and were causing more and more brain damage. So it meant that it came to a point where we weren't able to look after Colin anymore in the house, and therefore he ended up in a care home for 4.5 years. They looked after him beautifully, which was lovely. But in the end, because of a fall and subsequent infections, he became very weak and he passed away in April of 2018.
Fiona, really sorry to hear that. It's really so difficult because I know you're not that old. You're still a young woman, and to lose your husband at a time like the age that you are must have been so difficult for you. I know from what I've read that veterans can have a really difficult time returning to civilian life when they come home. What were some of the difficulties that Colin faced?
Sure. Well, I think that Colin had returned from his military career long before I met him. And when we first kind of started having conversations, I was really struck by how important that period of his life was for him. And he kept telling me similar stories again and again of different things that had happened, particularly in Northern Ireland, but also elsewhere. And what really became increasingly evident over the years was that his sense of identity, I think, was very much in his military past. Partly because of his epilepsy, his memory didn't always retain more recent memories, but he had a kind of adrenaline searing in some of his military memories that made them really dramatic and ever present for him as well. So I think he really struggled to adjust to civilian life because the military memories and some of the dramatic things that happened, some of them very troubling and very difficult, were the ones that his brain kept going back to. We went to see if he would get a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress syndrome, but actually they said that he didn't have it, but he had just about all of the symptoms. He had a startle reflex. He was watching war films. He was quite depressed at times. He could be quite irritable. He was just really, really struggling with identity. So just very difficult for him to be able to find his place again in life.
So very hard, isn't it? And you know, I was just listening to you speak there, that you were saying that his epilepsy seizures became quite degenerative, so that they were attacking his brain every time he had a seizure, and that you then became Colin's carer. How did you cope with these challenges, and how did your faith help you as Colin's carer at home?
I suppose, like many people, I'm still trying to process part of that. So that's kind of interesting. I think that in some ways I kind of compartmentalise my life in order to be able to care for Colin, and I was still working, and I'm a mum, and so trying to work it all out was really difficult as to how to be an effective carer for him. So there was part of me that almost had to detach from the situation, look at what his needs were, go to the medical profession, try and be an advocate for him, to be able to identify the things that were changing, how to be able to provide spiritual care for him as well. He was a Christian, he loved Christian music, sometimes God spoke to him in dreams. So was trying to work out how to care for him well, and also to be able to have the spiritual resources as well. So that was through prayer, through people round about who were very supportive. Also just going to retreats, sorry, that's a dog in the background, going to retreats as well, and just being able to try and provide for him, not just his physical needs, but his spiritual needs and his psychological needs as well.
Yeah, what I've been really aware of at this time is carers. This time of lockdown has been tough for lots of people, but I've been particularly aware of people that are in the caring role and at home, caring for people with lots of different conditions, whether it's dementia or Alzheimer's or cancer or epilepsy or lots of things. And you know, they haven't got the same support around them. I don't know whether respite services are still happening. I don't think they have been. And my heart is really with people that are caregivers at home in this time. How would you, what do you have any words that you could give to people that might be struggling in the caregiving role at home right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's so many different strands to this. I think that very often when you are involved in giving care to another human being, you get so wrapped up in trying to provide that, and you actually forget all about yourself, and you almost become so one with that person that it's difficult to disentangle. So it's how to be able to make sure that care's in place for that person, but also to be able to notice that you are still a person too, and to be able to have that self-care. It's interesting that you should talk about respite, because I think that's one of the big issues just now, because services have been cut back so much. But even when respite's in place, I think carers often feel very guilty about even thinking about respite, because we think, oh, surely I should be able to cope a wee bit longer. Why would I have them in with somebody that maybe doesn't know them so well? So I think there's a lot of guilt round about these issues, maybe a bit of shame as well, because a lot of the issues that come up when you're trying to care for somebody with a disability are actually very personal, and I think often we don't talk about them as well. So maybe for carers, just to make sure that you've got somebody, it could be somebody in your family or a friend, that really is a good listener that can support you, and also to go to specialised support groups as well. So for me, I went to Epilepsy Connections and a number of other groups, but to make sure that you're connected with these groups and you get good advice, because I think that it's very easy just to hear one person say, well, you can't do this anymore, and actually maybe there are other options that are worth exploring. So it's to have good information and good emotional support in the midst of all the things you're trying to do.
Oh, thank you, Fiona. That's wonderful advice. I have been really conscious of being a church, what we can do to support carers at the moment. When we haven't had lockdown, we have a really good pastoral care group that, and one of the things that they do is help people in the community get some respite. So whether or not they maybe sit with somebody for an hour or half an hour so they can go out and have a coffee, you know, little small things like that. And I think, you know, I was in the caring role. I looked after my husband just for a very short period. It was no time at all, really. But I just really valued people coming into this house, having a cup of coffee with me, listening to me. And I'm just really aware that people can't do that right now. So it's other people thinking out with the box, well, how can we still support people that are in the caregiving role right now so that they don't feel that they're alone?
Yeah, and I think it's tailoring it for each individual situation as well, because I think that it takes a long time to build up trust with somebody so that you can have a conversation. But I think conversations are important, even if they're just being able to look after somebody for half an hour, or have a coffee, and often there are deeper things that come up from that are just so important as well, as human beings, that we should talk to each other a bit more about, perhaps. It's hard, to be honest.
So I can't believe this, but I have just been told by you a couple of weeks ago that somehow in full-time ministry you have written a book and it's called Love Song for a Wounded Warrior. Could you tell us a little bit? Oh, there it is. And I'm going to your book launch soon, so I'm very excited by that. Hold up again.
It's
Yay! Excellent. Could you tell us a little bit about the writings and how it came about, the book?
Sure, thank you. So my husband often...
The dog's joining in.
It's good to be very inclusive. So my husband, when he was trying to come to terms with some of the things that had happened to him in the military, did some writing. So he wrote some poems, he wrote some fragments of different experiences that he remembered. And he always wanted them published, and for various reasons that didn't really happen, and for a long time he wasn't really well enough to be able to do that. So I wanted to honour his memory by being able to get these writings published. And then, because they were quite fragmentary, what I really wanted to do was to provide a framework round about that and to tell more of his story. And so it became a much bigger project than I had originally envisaged. I have always kept a journal, so I had some different things that I had written over the years to try and express some of the struggles that Colin had with his epilepsy, with his identity, with just how to be able to feel respected as a human being while he felt his limitations so keenly. So the book really was to try and honour his memory, to be able to raise awareness of veterans and the struggles that they have. And then as his life went on, we started to have more and more questions, I suppose, about how you support somebody who has a disability. His needs became incredibly complex. He was in and out of hospital, issues about how you are an advocate on behalf of somebody with incapacity, medical issues, issues about caring, and the NHS was really good, and we met lots of amazing people who were so helpful along the way, but we still had lots of questions really about how as a society we can support people with these kind of conditions. And so the book really is to raise awareness of veterans, and also to be able to encourage people to look at these questions. I think we all share them together, and say, well, how can we as a society try and address these and maybe be a little bit more understanding. I think one of the things that really was difficult for us is that Colin's seizures and his post-ictal phases, mood swing and memory issues, plus the post-traumatic symptoms, meant that he did have very complex needs. His life could be really difficult at times, and we didn't find lots of people who really understood that, and that was really, really hard. So I suppose we wanted to write this book, Love Song for a Wounded Warrior. He was a wounded warrior, and we loved him, we supported him as a family, we wanted the best for him, but we still have lots of questions as to how to do that well. So I really wanted to raise awareness of these questions. Also to raise some money for charity as well, for Epilepsy Connections, and also for the Coming Home Centre in Govan, which supports veterans. So a bit of a mixture of all these things, but really to honour my husband's memory, to say thank you to all the people who supported us and helped us in so many different ways. We really appreciated all the prayers and all the listening that went on. And also just to ask these questions as well, and to say to any carer, that's looking after somebody, just now, thank you so much for what you're doing, and that, you know, we really want to listen to you and to say that what you're doing is really significant, and please never feel alone. And as a Christian, just to say too that God's really with you, and please do find people that will support you on your journey, and hopefully that will help a bit.
Oh, God bless you, Fiona. Thank you so much for being so willing and open with us today. I know it can't be easy for you to talk like this to us, but I really appreciate you opening up to share, and to hopefully, as you say, support other people that might be facing similar situations, and to raise much needed awareness to some of the challenges that face veterans today. So thank you, Fiona, and I look forward to reading your book.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to see you today.
Bye for now. Bye bye.